I'll let you know as soon as it's live.
Hmm. Man, I love those candles.
I'd light them, but they drip on the floor. I gotta like straighten
Yeah,
it out.
it's very, very tilted.
Of course, Twitter grabbed the wrong description anyway, so. All
Take
right,
your
we're
time.
live on my side. You
Okay.
can start when you like.
All right. Three, two, one. Hi, this is Andy Hoffman of CryptoGoldCentral.com, the sound money blog of the 21st century, in which I write daily of my vision of the future of money, in which gold plays an increasingly passive role and Bitcoin an increasingly dominant role as the center of the monetary universe. Try my free 7-day free trial and contact me anytime at ahoffman at cryptogoldcentral.com to ask about the blog or arrange cryptocurrency and or precious metal related consultations. In my one-on-one podcast series, I seek to learn of and share the viewpoints of Bitcoin community's top thought leaders and entrepreneurs. All episodes, including this, the 18th, can be found at cryptogoldcentral.com, on my Twitter page at Andy_Hoffman_CG, and the World Crypto Network's iTunes feed and YouTube page. Well, I am back from my, for all intents and purposes, working vacation, and couldn't be happier to host Richard Hart for my inaugural 2018 one-on-one. The reason being that Richard may have the most well-rounded knowledge base in the entire Bitcoin community. Even if he upstages me for the entire hour or so, it will be worth it, as when he speaks, your knowledge and mine of the cryptocurrency space will increase. Richard's must-read tweets, must-listen podcasts, and numerous blogs and chat rooms can be found at his Twitter feed at Richard Hart Win. And today, I intend to pick his brain not about the minutia, but the big picture themes that he and I expect to dominate 2018. To that end, Richard, welcome to One on One.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, everybody, it is very hard. I know some people don't like that you script these things, but I do. And I'll tell you, it is getting harder and harder to do it because unless I do it just before the show, I'm likely to miss out on big market news and developments that seemingly appear every day now. To give you an idea how difficult, consider that I started scripting this one Tuesday morning, as in 2 days ago, at what appeared to be the tail end of yet another test of Bitcoiners' mettle, as it had finally crept back to the high 14,000s following the horrific sector decline of the past few days that took its valuation to, gasp, the all-time high levels achieved the week before. Subsequently, Bitcoin's price plunged throughout yesterday morning to a low of 13,400 before surging to nearly 15,000 last night, when a combination of the latest, already debunked South Korea FUD was released. Coincidentally, just after Bitcoin was knocked down by another magical Bcash pump. The price then plunged to 12,800, recovered to 13,900, plunged to 13,100 this morning, and surged back to 14,000 when said South Korean FUD was proven to be fake news. Then another failed Bcash pump, yielding a Bitcoin price of exactly 14,000 or so as we start the podcast. To that end, I do not intend to discuss and rehash the comical South Korea FUD or unabashed Bcash propaganda, the latter of which was thoroughly destroyed on last week's one-on-one episode with Rocky Palumbo. To the contrary, we're going to talk today about bigger picture issues, starting with last week's decidedly over altcoin pump. Yes, I know Ripple was right in the middle of it, going both up and down, but we're not going to speak of Ripple specifically, as the hideous fundamentals and ghastly overvaluation of that worthless piece of altcoin garbage has been documented ad nauseum. Instead, I want to discuss the altcoin sector in general to see if what we're seeing today of massive outperformance to the point that Bitcoin has been cast into the shadows temporarily is simply the product of manic penny stock speculation or something more complex. To that end, Richard, how do you view the current altcoin performance, and what do you expect their role and valuation relative to Bitcoin to be in the coming months?
So, there was a time when Ethereum almost had a higher market cap than Bitcoin, and forks and futures kind of put a stake in that. And then there's other risks to Ethereum as well, such as large portions of their coins being locked up in ICOs, and then the ICO guys have more information than you do, so they can kind of agree to dump or agree to not dump. And since you're not in that club, you can get dumped on and you wouldn't know any better. So, you know, we know that altcoins have the ability to go up in value, and they often do. They also have the ability to go down in value, and they often do. So I think altcoins right now are a higher volatility play, and they got beat up for a long time before we had the CBOE and CME launch, and a lot of these other larger funds which are launching, which are pretty cool. They're just dumping money into the crypto space. My prediction, was since the CME dumped on us for so long that, or we overpriced it, like we overaccounted for how good it would be, which led to the short-term drop. But even in that case, like you get these 40 and 30% drops every, 45 to 60 days anyway, if you look back at the chart. So it was just kind of coincidental timing that we'd overpriced in a buy the rumor, sell the news event with when we were, due for a drop anyway. So back to alts, if I think a lot of alts are going to go up in value, and we've seen that, and then I think they're going to give back a lot of their gains, and that oscillation is basically going to reward the people that bought cheap and punish the people that bought, near the top. And it's hard to know where the bottoms and tops are unless you're a full-time trader. And I think trading is a rather short-term, short-sighted thing. Whatever you do short-term to figure out the price next week, it didn't matter. It's all gone. It's all wasted. It has no lasting value. So if you have the option of building stuff or staring at charts and trying to figure out price, building stuff always wins mid and long term. Not to mention your risk is lower. So in summary, I think altcoins can go up from where they are now. But when Bitcoin does its roars, and it does, you'll probably give back most of your gains. And you're basically like doing a coin flip. It's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, and I would agree also, especially when people say in hindsight, yeah, they're shorting, but Wall Street is with the CME futures. No, there was major front running of the futures contracts and the, as we call it, wall of institutional money. Everyone knew all the crypto hedge funds were going to start January 1st. They knew that the futures would start at the end of December. And that was a spirited pump based on front running. And as you said, it was a sell on the news. But that said, at the same time, you did have all that money coming in, a lot of which probably was trying to diversify into alts. Because if you're Wall Street, you have a hedge fund, you're going to buy, 30, 40% Bitcoin and then the rest of the other stuff. So I think there's a lot of cross currents at the beginning of the year that kind of made people not quite understand what's going on. And then, of course, you had CNBC pumping Ripple, which died. I mean, I wrote this 3 days ago. It's down 50%. It's lost more than half its valuation against Bitcoin. So we're done with Ripple for a while. I'm sure it'll do something later on. Now, you talked about Ethereum. I want to specifically talk about that one because, even during this dump last week, Ethereum was rising, not just against Bitcoin, but absolutely. And from my perspective, especially, now you have Rootstock coming out. So I'm going, what is it about the Ethereum world that has gotten so much better relative to everything else just in the last few weeks? Can you explain that, or am I missing something?
Well, I don't think that anything has really gotten better in their ecosystem. Um, so if a large portion of the money that's coming in is passively invested money, which means that Joe investor or Joe accredited investor gives his money to a fund, and then that fund, not knowing any better or wanting to fulfill their value proposition, just buys the top cryptos in order of their market share. So like a market cap weighted index of cryptos. I hate that those things exist. I mean, I like that they exist because it brings more liquidity to the space and it gets more people exposed to this revolutionary technology. But I dislike greatly that the passively invested funds reward projects which are terrible. Some of the projects that are in the top 10 cryptos aren't cryptos. So Ripple isn't a cryptocurrency. You don't install a wallet. You use their website and hope that they let you use your money. That's not a cryptocurrency. That's not a bearer asset. That's not censorship resistant. That's not government resistant. That's fake, right? It's terrible. And then, I think in the top 15, there's at least one straight up Ponzi scheme. And then you've got imposters like Bcash, which copied, the logo, the name, some of the technology, but missing the good parts like segwit. It's like, so
Like
if you,
decentralization.
yeah, if you just if you invest in the top cryptocurrencies, you're investing in some garbage, right? And I hate to see garbage rewarded uh, because it got pumped, right? So okay, you got pumped. Now you're in the top 10. Now you're going to get the index funds money because you're in the top 10, even though you're really a piece of crap. So, in this space, it's different when you're investing in the normal legacy markets. You have an index fund, and those companies that have survived are more likely to be legit. Whereas in the crypto space, just because you got onto the top 10 doesn't mean you really belong there, like technically, right? So yeah, I'm not so. I think that Ethereum and the other top cryptos will pump just based on the fact that they're near the top of the list, and these index fund guys don't know any better than to just buy, for the most part, whatever's at the top of the list, which kind of sucks because it rewards bad projects.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and again, it's no big deal. We're talking about drops in the bucket of all the trillions that are going to be coming into the space. And I do agree a lot more of what has happened in the last few weeks or 2 weeks in the alt space has to do with passive investing than active. I think a lot of people think this is just everyone like, oh my God, Cardano's the next big thing. They're just, as you said, they're looking for the bigger names in the top. A lot of those big names are there simply due to the fraudulent accounting, having pre-mines of 80 billion or 20 billion coins, and they get up there and then they get bought, and Ethereum is the top of that. And these things will all settle out in time, because I think we both agree that none of them that I can see really have much use case, certainly not in the top 10. And Bitcoin, as I say, Ethereum does something, Bcash does nothing, and Bitcoin does everything. Okay, now, Richard, next I want to talk about what, if any, this is on the day of all this Korea stuff, what, if any, significant FUD events are readily apparent or potentially black swans? From my perspective, all fears of Bcash, 2x, or any other altcoin usurping any material aspect of Bitcoin are dead. No matter what propaganda, mempool spamming, or collusion with CNBC and Coinbase, Roger Ver, or any other Bitcoin enemy attempts. However, I do foresee much broader battles with governments that feel threatened by cryptocurrency, like China last year, to a lesser extent, the UK, Australia, and South Korea in recent months. Not that I expect them to win or even make a serious dent in demand or adoption. However, it is certainly a clear and present danger to be wary of. To that end, Richard, please tell us what you expect to be Bitcoin's biggest threats of 2018, be they from within the Bitcoin community or outside of it, like from governments.
So I don't think governments. There's two kinds of ways to look at cryptocurrency projects. One is the price, which is really important, and the other is the survivability of the technology itself, right? So you could have tons of adoption with a low price, or you could have a really high price with no adoption. They're both doable. So I'll speak to government threats as a function of technological threats and price threats. So as you've seen, short-term, just rumors are enough to screw with price, which is okay because the price is almost always going up. So we can withstand 30 and 40% drops with this 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right? So we'll go up 200%, we'll go down 40. We'll go up 200, we'll go down 30. We'll go up 200. That's fine, right? That's part of the game. So I don't think governments really have much left in the way of price harm that they can do. So Russia oscillated from ban, unban, ban, unban. China oscillated from ban, unban, ban, unban. Now South Korea is oscillating from ban, unban. And, it hasn't done any type of lasting harm to the price midterm, anything longer than 30 days. So, I mean, if you were a government and you wanted to really impact price, you'd have to do like a full out ban like they did on gold and start like crushing the rights of your citizens and like violating their rights. So, in my opinion, speech is well worth protecting as a right, and there's very little difference between verbal speech and speech of a private key. So if I'm allowed to interact with others and associate with them and meet up with them in groups, right? The freedom of association. Well, then I should be allowed to do commerce with them as well, and I can use the the exchange method of my choice, you know. So if I want to use crypto, I should be able to do so. And if you try and violate my rights to interact in commerce with my peers, well, you're violating my human rights, you know. You're violating my freedom of association. So for me, cryptocurrencies are a free speech issue, and if governments wanted to do long-term harm to the projects, they'd have to start violating the rights of the citizens and just make mentioning crypto illegal, like thought crime or something, you know. And I don't think they're going to do that, and I think that ship has sailed, right? Like BitTorrent, right? What does everyone use BitTorrent for? Downloading illegal stuff, free movies, free music. Okay, well, has the government stopped it? No. Well, why not? Is it because the MPAA doesn't have enough lobbying power? No, they do. It's very hard to stop these things. You have to start violating a lot of rights to do it. And at some point, it's not a good deal for the people in power. They wouldn't get elected any longer. So I don't think there's much left governments can do to hurt the price. So let's talk about technology. If China makes the electricity more expensive for their miners, that's awesome. Sorry, Chinese miners, you had a great run, but now you get to be decentralized. You don't get to have outsized influence on the project because you have extremely cheap labor and extremely cheap electricity. Now we have a more safe, secure, friendly, English-speaking, able to negotiate with mining pool of people that are everywhere but China, or in lower numbers in China. I think that would be good for the project. And, you know, if the game is censorship resistance, then having some large portion of anything in a single place is bad. So having a large portion of your miners in a single geographic location, which isn't particularly freedom oriented, it's not good. So that's actually good news to see that reduction. And we're oversecured anyway. We don't need all that hash power. The attacks that we get, they don't come from that vector. So, you know, if hash power were much lower, it would be fine. So what did we go over? We went over price threats, and then we go over technical threats. So mining would be one technical threat. I guess another one would be like port blocking doesn't work. You just rotate
And then
everything.
of course, within the community, Richard, e-cashers, etc.
Oh, you mean, could you rephrase the question?
Yes. Are there any threats left within the Bitcoin community itself, such as Bcash or anything like that, or is it all done?
Well, I mean, you can't really call. So I believe in everybody's right to fork and to do their own projects and try and innovate and try and add value. You know, I think that's great. So I don't really see forks as a threat. I see them as awesome, right? So hey, these Bcash guys wanted to go and do their own thing, and they paid you for the privilege. You know, they gave you an equal amount of tokens on their chain as you had on the original chain. Well, that's pretty sweet. The only thing they screwed up on is instead of trying to represent their value in relationship to the 1,000 altcoins, they decided that their value would come from shit talking the real Bitcoin that they impersonate, that they copy. Well, that's a terrible decision on their part. There's a whole lot of other people taking market share with different code bases that they didn't copy, that they don't spend their time attacking. And so you're almost always better off in any project and in general in life to not really shit talk other projects, but to just kind of build your own project, because you empower the thing that you shit talk, right? So like right now we're talking about Bcash, and now we're giving them minutes of mind space that they don't deserve solely because they're antagonistic and terrible and unfair to the project that they copied, right? And so we're kind of rewarding them for bad behavior. They should die or live on their own, and they should stop trying to become better through attacking that which generated them. It's the reason that I, for the most part, don't like the project. I mean, there's a lot of technical reasons not to like it as well, but just from this question started off as, you know, community threats. So I think that having a concerted effort to shit talk the real Bitcoin and buy properties that have space, like mind space, such as certain Twitter accounts, certain domain names, you know, starting antagonistic subreddits, all those things, they help the alts more than they help the people. So if the Bcash people attack Bitcoin and screw Bitcoin up, Ethereum wins. So
Right.
like exactly how is that a great idea, right?
Yes.
It's and
Ethereum and
it's
many others. Yeah.
yeah,
And,
it's
and I would agree. In fact, what I would say is that Bcash actually started a little more idealistically, even if they had to do it in a haphazard way because the whole segwit thing kind of screwed them up. But I think that Roger Ver actually thought that he had a better mousetrap until as soon as he started doing it, he realized that no one uses it and that his best defense was an offense to just attack. And then he kind of understood started to learn the whole game of insider trading. There's no doubt that he understood that you could rig the game and collude with Coinbase and CNBC and Roger and Jian Wu and all the miners and do all kinds of things to regularly pump and dump the thing, and that's what it's turned into. People know what it is now. It's just a piece of malware that pumps and dumps based on collusion. So I will say though that from the threats from external to the community, I agree. Governments are rapidly losing their ability to do anything. But as far as what governments could do anything, really, there's four. There's China, which is done. They did their thing, didn't work. Japan, which has embraced cryptocurrency and, in my view, is going to rise from the ashes. I'll bet you today they were the big buyers that took it from the bottom. Japan understands that countries will be made or broken by Bitcoin more than anybody. And so that's two down. Then you got the US and the EU. Now, the EU has 28 countries. I bet half of those countries are pro Bitcoin. I mean, so I don't think the EU is ever going to be able to get together and make any decisions. And that leaves the United States, which, as you said, at one point banned gold, but that was a long, long time ago. This is a global market in which the US market is a tiny little piece of it. And I think any moves to do, as you say, try to restrict rights. I mean, I'm not talking about closing Coinbase. I mean, who cares? Coinbase is horrible. But any move to restrict rights will just make it more valuable around the world. So I do expect that there's going to be something from the United States at some point when it gets big enough, maybe this year. But I agree completely that they are rapidly running out of the ability to actually make people believe they can do anything. Now, I want to talk next about the technology developments we should expect in the Bitcoin network, because I know that you're on top of this. And for that matter, any altcoins that are actually accomplishing anything of note. From my understanding, everything from the Lightning Network to side chains, decentralized trading platforms are coming soon. However, my layman's understanding of technology and limited knowledge of the roadmaps what make me want to ask Richard to tell us what he expects in 2018 and how it will impact global crypto adoption.
so before I tell you about cool tech and cool alts, I just want to say in regards to the whole Bcash thing, imagine if you like, and this I'm sure this will come back up later in the show, if you like dividends and you like forks, which coin is going to give you the most dividend and fork value? Bitcoin, because it has the largest everything, right? Largest install base, largest number of developers that produce code that's used, largest number of everything, liquidity, right? So if you have Bitcoin, every fork that comes out, you're benefiting from. But if you have fake Bitcoin at 0.2 value, right? If you have the 20% value Bitcoin, the Bcash, you don't get any dividends, right? And the funny thing is, like, you could sell your dividends as you get them, and then you have more Bitcoin that gets more dividends. So as long as people keep forking the main coin, you'd always prefer to have the real one that like amplifies and gets a snowball rolling more than the fake one, you know? So,
Right.
uh,
For anyone who sold Bcash less than 0.15 or zero point 0.2 Bitcoin. Guess what? You got B gold, you got B diamond, B rhodium, and all kinds of B things that you would never ever get from Bcash.
right. So your previous dividends amplified your future dividends if you rolled them into the core coin, which is kind of cool. So technological roadmap stuff. There's a lot of really cool development going on with the Lightning Network. It's on the main net. People are using it, and it's kind of hard to get your mind around until you get it. And then once you get it, it's really easy. So I guess I'll just try and explain what I think getting it is. So right now, when you've got Bitcoin, you're actually somewhat limited into what you can do with them. So if you want to spend your Bitcoin, like, you can put them on an open dime and then sell the open dime to someone, which is like a tier 2 thing. Or you could put it on an exchange and do things with them on the exchange, which is another tier 2 thing. You have huge counterparty risk. But with Lightning Network, you don't really have counterparty risk. It's all, cryptographically secured, and you free your coins. So when you move your coins from normal Bitcoin to the Lightning Network, you get instant, free, fast transactions with everyone else that's on that network, and you only have to fill up your wallet. So you don't have to open a channel with everyone you want to do business with. You only need to open up a channel to get on the network, right? And then it's basically your hot wallet. So when you've got money on the Lightning Network, you can spend it and interact with everyone else on there instant, fast, and free, and cryptographically secure without opening and closing more channels, right? So you really only need to open a channel once with someone that's on there, and then they're all connected. And then if you want to leave that, and the question would be like, why exactly would you want to leave? If you plan to use Bitcoin freer and faster, you should leave some money in there, right? Like there's no real reason to close the channel. So it's neat. You can install a Lightning wallet, the Zap wallet by Jack Mallers, I believe his name is.
Yes.
And experiment with it, play with it. And people ask things like, when are we going to get Lightning? Well, we have it now. Just like, when are we going to get segwit? We have it now, but you still have to want to use it. So the people that control the majority of the transactions in the system, the majority of the billing, the majority of the wallet setups, the majority of the transactions, they need to adopt it, right? And once they adopt it, then you'll see the percentages increase. Then everything gets better. I think the existence of Lightning, and it should, in an ideal world, kill a lot of altcoins. But you wonder whether that'll really happen or not, because the altcoins don't thrive based on adoption. They thrive based on pump and dump.
Here's a question: is the reason why? And yes, I know there's political reasons and there's inertia, but is the big reason why it's segwit and Lightning Network are going to take slower to adopt because most people are just hodling? Like, I really don't care about the Lightning Network right now, other than that it strengthens the network and drives adoption. But I'm not going to use it. Is that kind of how you would view it?
Well, it really depends on which part of Bitcoin matters to you. And not all parts of Bitcoin matter the same to all people. So if you live in Venezuela, then you care about the transactional ability of Bitcoin greatly. If you're a rich guy that's just speculating, you couldn't care less. You don't need to spend these coins. Your bank account works fine. So Bitcoin really performs different valuable services to different vertical demographics, right? So for you, Lightning Network doesn't matter, but for a person that is using BitPay right now and paying high fees, or for a person that is, on the dark net and doing millions of dollars of transactions, paying lower fees and having faster transactions would be awesome. I mean, really awesome. Because, think about it this way. Right now, if you use, a relatively normal software Bitcoin wallet, it doesn't really tell you that you've got the coins until 6 confirmations has happened. Because waiting 60 minutes for 6 confirms means that the likelihood that your transactions rolled back or orphaned off in a chain split is nearly impossible. But if you don't have to wait 6 transactions, then you can spend your money quicker. It's just the ability to iterate and do things faster is super important. So I think that the Lightning Network is going to add a lot of new use cases and a lot more adoption to the project, which will reduce the percentage of speculative value and increase the percentage of real world utility value. And I think that has great lasting value, and it is not as susceptible to bubble stuff and oscillations. Real world adoption and retail usage is the best long-term and mid-term solution for Bitcoin going to $1 million.
Right. And of course, it's a feedback loop. The more people use it, the more people want to use it, and the more people want to get into Bitcoin, either for personal or commerce reasons. So, but yes, it's been slow so far as how many people are using it, but I don't think anyone expected all these things to actually be out. I think, we've seen now the decentralized networks, we've seen the Lightning Network, we've seen the rootstock, they're all out. So it's not like there's any delays. The community works fast. It's just a matter of adoption.
Yep. So other projects I think that are doing cool technical stuff. If you think that blockchains are the most secure thing in the world, but have drawbacks like blocks being full, high fees, then there are some technologies that are either federated or use a different consensus mechanism, which are interesting to experiment with. And so there's a class of consensus mechanism called a directed acyclic graph. And some popular projects on that space would be Byteball, Ryeblocks, IOTA. I think those are the top 3 that I can think of that use directed acyclic graph. My favorite's Byteball. I think IOTA's a piece of trash, and it is, so you know.
So
And apparently,
how many altcoins do you actually like? Because you say you like Byteball. How many do you actually think highly of?
well, not many. I mean, so Litecoin's kind of cool because it's a test net for some features that, you know, you may be scared to roll out on Bitcoin, but like for instance, segwit rolled out first on Litecoin before it rolled out on Bitcoin. That's kind of cool, right? And so that helped Bitcoin get something good done. So I thought that was nice of Litecoin to do that. Um, I don't really like the fake crypto so much, like Ripple and things that don't have decentralized censorship resistance. But if you were gonna buy Ripple, I'd probably like Lumens over Ripple. Um, I'm really partial to those things that were fairly distributed and particularly handed out to people that had Bitcoins. So for instance, you know, Byteball still gets handed out for free to people that have Bitcoins if you tie your address in. And Lumens was just recently, I guess a couple months ago, handed out for free to Bitcoin holders if they wanted to jump through some hoops and tie their Facebook account to an address or be on a certain exchange. So I am partial to projects that were airdropped to Bitcoin holders, and it's not just because it rewards people that had the real crypto, the Bitcoin, but it's also just because I know more about the projects. You know, I as a Bitcoin holder, I have more incentive to learn about the projects that are handed out to people that hold Bitcoin than the myriad of projects where you have to participate in the pump and dump in order to play, right? Like there's so many new cryptos coming out that it's very hard reading all day long to keep up with all of them, right? So I like Litecoin. If I had to choose a privacy coin, I'd choose Monero. I don't like the other privacy coins. If I had to choose a distributed acyclic graph play to not have mining and not have block sizes, I would choose Byteball. It has smart contracts. It has an anonymous send feature. It has oracles built in. It's got sports betting built in. It's got a exchange built into the client. The client's multi-platform. The price should be 10 times higher than it is. It's really got a lot of super cool technology in it. That's about it. Like I don't really know of any other. So I mean, what could you care about in a coin? You could care about anonymity. You could care about different consensus mechanism. You could care about it being on Coinbase for getting the new noob money. And what exactly, you know, all the digital ledger technology is garbage. All of it, right? Like if you have a project that is digital ledger technology, you're an idiot because you could just do that now by putting the hash in the newspaper. You're like, oh, we're going to prove house registrations. Okay, well, hash it and put it in the newspaper. And then that'll go in microfiche in libraries all over the world. And if you wanted to roll back the chain, you'd have to go to every library in the world and change the microfiche. It's just not going to happen. So like any project that like timestamps things or puts them in the blockchain, hash it and put it in the classifieds of your newspaper. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. They're all worth nothing as far as I'm concerned.
Here's one more technology I definitely want you to comment on because especially when we see all the FUD about exchanges, they're going to ban exchanges, and if I don't even know if they actually have banned the Chinese exchanges, and I highly doubt they would touch the Korean exchanges since it's probably the biggest business in the country. But at some point, we all know that if the U.S. government gets angry enough, they're going to ban Coinbase, and that would be a great day for Bitcoin as a project, but probably not a good day for the price. But my bigger question is, I see these decentralized exchanges. I saw Vortex's presentation a few weeks ago on the Bitcoin News with BISC, with altcoin.io, and especially with all the focus on whether governments are going to do anything with exchanges. I mean, how close do you think we are to those becoming ubiquitous, usable by everybody?
I just saw an exchange that was based on the Lightning Network. I didn't tweet about it because I haven't, eyeballed them hard enough to know if their project's legit enough. But there is a Lightning Network based exchange, which is super, super fast. It's kind of cool. I think there's so much money in exchanges that, I mean, some exchanges are making $1 million a day, like net. And there's several of them doing that.
Unquestionably, yes.
That's good money. If you can make $1 million a day net on a team of like 10 people, that's good money, right? So I think we're going to see a lot more of these crypto to crypto decentralized exchanges. And as awesome as that is, it doesn't help us get more fiat into the system, which is like the end game, right? The end game is that we stop using the accounting system of our overlords that, were born with silver spoons in their mouth and rent seek, and we have to use their money with, dead notables on them. And we want to get out of that system and into this new system, which is peer-to-peer, frictionless, no rent seeking, more secure, and you just hold it and get rich because it keeps going up in value, right? That's so much better than holding the dead notables paper that keeps going down in value every day, or you hold the crypto and it goes up in value every day. It's a better deal. So in order to transition and to make that occur, we really need more fiat onboarding gateways. So the big problem that Coinbase had with launching a surprise launch of a trading pair against their roadmap and against what they had told people publicly, that would not be an issue if there were more onboarding people to reduce the value of that particular entity. And the only reason that particular entity is important or valuable now is because they were able to overcome the regulatory hurdles. So if everyone and their cousin could just sell Bitcoin over localbitcoins.com at scale, Coinbase wouldn't matter so much, right? The reason Coinbase matters right now is because the banks have it hard from the regulators, and the regulators have it hard from the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice just hates a lot of things that are freeing of humans, such as encryption, such as cryptocurrency, such as the right for you to be secure in your own possessions without them eyeballing them, right? The DOJ doesn't like those things so much because it makes their job a little harder. So if we can get more fiat onboarding gateways to make it easier for people to get out of the old bad system and into the new better system, then premiums will come down, premiums will equalize across countries, and we'll have a rapid increase of onboarding. I mean, right now, all the onboarding locations have backlogs on customer service tickets for a month. Well, that's no good. That's not a good experience for anyone. So, I would love for decentralized exchanges to matter more. And I would particularly love for decentralized fiat onboarding gateway exchanges to come online more. And if you can make $1 million a day doing it, go to it, guys.
Well, the funny thing is, you talked about the end game, and this goes back to all that I talked about and thought about in my years in precious metal. The end game, of course, is fiat currency entering the cryptocurrency system. But as you say, how could that possibly happen if A, the exchanges are not equipped for it, and B, the government can be the gatekeeper, like you're seeing in all these nationwide bank here, Australian banks. They can just say, well, we're not going to send to exchanges. We just decided not to. The government ordered it. So you say, well, how is it going to get over there? It's not all going to get there with localbitcoins.com. And the answer is going to be, per what, as Max Kaiser says, I mean, it's really happening. People joke about it, especially when they hear the word. But we are seeing right now the beginnings of a hyperinflation of the dollar and other fiat currencies against Bitcoin. It's the early stages, but this is what we talk about by the wealth transfer. If you are stuck in these fiat currencies, when the system decides to convert itself, you are going to see a dramatic decline in your purchasing power against the people who have already gotten their fiat into the crypto system, whether it's Bitcoin or the other winners there. And that's the interesting part of it, because I just can't see a case where there's going to be an increased level of government approval of wires leaving Citibank and going to Gemini, and let alone going to these other crypto exchanges in like Cryptopia in the middle of decentralized exchanges in Asia. So that's the end game, and it's going to be interesting to see who can capitalize in it, or more importantly, who can get their money out first.
I think that you will actually, I think that you will see an increased ease of wiring money to crypto entities. I don't think it's going to get harder. I don't think government regulations are going to get stricter. I think they're going to get less strict. So let's take, for instance, what's happening in South Korea. In South Korea, they had massive FOMO. Buy all the coins now. And it's one of the first countries to have that on a massive scale. And I expect that we'll see that in other countries. And look at what their response has been. The response has been, we want to make sure kids aren't playing this risky game. We want to make sure people aren't laundering money. And we want to make sure that you aren't running away with the money, that you've got good security safeguards in place to protect the coins that are, and the dollars that are on your exchange. Those are all good things. So, so for instance, we talk about Coinbase being important to the ecosystem now because it's got the best onboarding, it's got the best bank relationships so that you can send the money. That is only possible because of the New York law that gave banks a legal standing by which to feel secure opening accounts for Coinbase. So the New York law, which everyone hated, Ben Losky's terrible destroy Bitcoin law, allowed Coinbase to exist, right? So in an ideal world, you wouldn't need it because the regulations would be less scary. But since the regulations are scary, it's a patch, it's a hack, it's a kludge that allows it to work. And you'll see more of those. So South Korea will eventually put a framework in place, some rules, some laws that state you can have an exchange with bank accounts in this country if you meet these guidelines. That's better, not worse. That makes it easier for them to get bank accounts, not worse. That gives the people that use their services more protection, not less. That's bullish, right? That's good. That's midterm, long term, and for smart people, short term, good, right? So I think we're going to see more governments providing regulatory certainty regarding the opening and operation of crypto businesses, and that will allow more people to play along, right? Like, let me give you an example of what a really ideal world would look like. When you go to your bank, they want to make money on you. And how do they make money on you? Well, they hope that you overdraft your account and they get to bang you for 30 or 40 bucks. They hope that you accept every offer that they give you, and with every piece of mail they send you and with every phone call that you make, they try and sell you something. They want to sell you insurance, they want to sell you investment plans, they want to sell you everything that they can partner up with somebody and make another dollar on their client base. Well, what if they could sell you crypto? Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't it be great if you wanted to buy Bitcoin, instead of going and onboarding in some new place and sending them all these stupid documents and answering stupid questions about where you got your coins and where you got your money? Wouldn't it just be great if you could go to your bank and be like, yeah, transfer this amount of money into my Bitcoin account? That'd be fabulous. Now, what's the only reason we don't have that right now? The only reason we don't have that right now is because of regulatory certainty. As soon as we have regulatory certainty, the banks are going to add crypto, particularly Bitcoin, to their offerings to make money on it, just like they do health insurance, life insurance, travel insurance, gold, right? So the more regulatory certainty we get and the more governments regulate this stuff, the easier and faster it's going to be to get real adoption. And I don't see any country that's issued any law that's been actually bad for Bitcoin. They've all been good. And the harshest law I've seen in any country, I guess there's some weird little countries that just straight up ban it, like communist countries, like some weird African country. In that case, that'd be an exception. But for real countries that have real GDPs, the only harsh crypto legislation I've seen is where they straight up banned ICOs in China. And I think most ICOs are scams. So now I have an ICO, and it's, you can go to cfdtoken.com and read a little bit about it. So that I will be proud to be a member of the 0.01% of legit awesome projects. But the rest of these projects are terrible. like you should do this business. You should, this business should fail before you finish writing the white paper. Yeah. So I don't mind that.
Well, you bring up some very interesting points. And the first thing, again, even I try so hard not to do it. I got secular for a second. I got too US centric because obviously the US has the most to lose of any country from the rise of cryptocurrency, being that we manage the dollar and pretty much have been the superpower based on this fraudulent fiat system. But again, a lot of I'd say half the countries in the world are already just ragingly pro Bitcoin, starting with, say, Japan, which is one of the top countries. And I will bet anything that Switzerland will be on board too, if they aren't already. But the one issue, as far as regulatory easing, which is going to be a sticking point for all countries, is the tax issue. Because whether you're a desperate country just to get commerce and to keep things flowing, or you're a major a country like the US, which has a gigantic government that needs taxes, crypto really, really breaks into your tax base. I mean, to me, Bitcoin alone is going to drop the US tax revenues from the government. It could drop them 50% or more, in which case the government has to shrink and they will fight that. And that's why, that's my major thinking of why it's going to be hard for governments, especially in the US, to let this happen. I mean, how do you, I'm just trying to see how you think this could play out with this very sticky issue.
I don't think that I don't think cryptos will have an impact that is that large on government tax revenues, for the reason that if you want to not pay your taxes now, you can not pay them. It's voluntary, right? And
But it's
if
harder to track with crypto than it is now.
I don't know about
Unless
that.
unless you're using unless you're using cash. If you're using cash, maybe.
I think it's a lot easier to track crypto than it is to track dollars. If you use Bitcoin and you want to do shady things, you got two options, okay? You can either become a computer security expert and understand coin mixing and hope that when you put your coins in the mixer, they actually got mixed and the chain actually got broke and you didn't just get back the same coins that you sent in. Are you a computer security expert? Do you know how to tell whether your chain was really broken or not, or whether you're still tainted or not? No, you're probably not going to be able to do that. All right, so what's your other option? You can use an anonymity focused coin like Monero, right, and pay the transaction fee in and out. But in the end, they look at what you have, right? So if you report that you made 100 grand and you have a $200,000 car, well, that's fishy. If you report you made 100 grand and you have $1 million house, that's fishy, right? So I think that the way people, like, I don't think crypto is that useful for tax evasion. And I think that uh, it, I don't see the metric by which advanced crypto adoption reduces the ability for governments to collect tax, because they would just make the laws the same, right? So like if you work at Starbucks and they take the money right out of your check for your social security and your employment tax, they're gonna do the same thing with crypto. Like, what's the difference? Like, we know you have a store, we see you have employees, we want our money. It's either dollars or it's crypto. They don't care. Like, it doesn't matter to them. Like, they're still gonna get their receipts, right?
Well, this is such a great topic because again, there's the difference between the reality you're talking about, and of course, when you talk about it's easy to track crypto, well, yes, theoretically they can do it, but it takes a huge amount of manpower. And then, of course, there's the perception that they don't like. I mean, look, they want a cash society, meaning like the crypto ruble, where they see where all the money's going. They do not like the fact that, let's say, like trillions of dollars and yen and euros are sitting in trezors and electrum wallets and things that they have no idea that it's there, and they think that they're owed taxes on it or that it's being used. So yes, there are end ramps where they can certainly track no different, but there's going to be a general paranoia about it, especially if people at the same time start to get nervous about fiat currency and say this is a replacement for it. So there's a lot of moving parts going on here. There's the logical side of it from where you are. There's the paranoid side from where the governments go. And then there's just the inertia of this sector that's not going to be stopped, especially with all the technology. I mean, at some point, they're going to add privacy to Bitcoin too, just
Yeah.
like Monero. Is that right?
So yeah, it's in the works. So we've got Mimblewimble, which does a lot of cool stuff. We got confidential transactions, which does cool stuff. Atomic cross swaps would fix tons as well. There's a lot of really cool anonymity things, which for the most part you don't really need right now. How many people have really been screwed over by chain analysis? Maybe one child pornographer in history, maybe, right? So like it's just not really a big deal right now. And if you really want the anonymity, you can have it. You can learn coin mixing, or you can go to an anonymous coin, or you can go to cash, like whatever your security model, privacy choice.
Hey, may even have Bitcoin private soon, which I don't know much about, but they're supposedly layering the privacy of Zcash into Bitcoin. Very interesting. But the point is,
Uh,
there's a lot of moving parts here. That's all.
yeah, Zcash, right? So nobody uses the anonymity features of Zcash. You actually have to do and use their network differently in order to get the anonymity features, and no one does. So it's fake anonymity. So I don't. It's like it's an anonymity project that has an anonymity feature that no one uses.
Okay, as opposed to Monero, which you're saying is
Right.
actual privacy.
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
And they also have a 20% pre-mine on Zcash. Now the Z Classic fork, which is becoming, be private, and is, being handed out to Bitcoin holders. Great. Maybe they'll actually use the anonymity features, and I love every project that's friendly and handing out benefits to Bitcoin holders. Fabulous, right? So from those perspectives, great. But from like copying Zcash sucks. 20% founders tax every block. Every block that gets mined, the founders get 20%.
okay. So it's a
What?
it's a financial engineering machine, and even Be Private in many ways is a derivative of a financial engineering machine.
Right. So, it can't be worse than Zcash, so that's nice. But Zcash sucks. So,
Got it.
um, we were talking about anonymity and government regulations and such. I think the best way to look at government regulations and progress and almost all of life is probabilistically. And what you'll find is, Newton's, I don't know, third law, an object in motion tends to stay in motion, and the status quo tends to remain the status quo. And if you're looking at a chart, the trend line tends to be respected. That's why it's the trend line, right? So if you're curious about what governments are likely to do, it's more of the same. So, you know, it's good, right? If you're wondering what crypto is likely to do, more of the same. It's likely to keep onboarding more people, right? If so, for instance, take the Bitcoin price. Is it more likely to go up or down? Up. Why? Look at the chart. It's been going up for a long time. So your options are it's going to keep doing what it's been doing, or this time it's different. And this is going to be the end of the bull market today because you decided it, right? Today is going to be the end of the bull market. Well, that decision's usually wrong. It's usually right to go with the trend. And, so I don't think that you're going to see massive change from legal. I don't think you're going to see massive change from the IRS in regards to, let's go kill this thing or whatever, right? Those things are huge inertia, slow moving. You're not going to see giant volatility in their behavior, is my estimate.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the ambiguous but all important question of critical mass. In other words, how close are we to significant new plateaus of Bitcoin utility, adoption, and demand? To me, 2017 was the year of financial adoption, in large part due to its commandeering of gold's 5,000-year grip on wealth of storage leadership, which in my view commenced the second segwit was locked in, once and for all ending the scaling wars and defeating Roger Ver. However, 2018 is another story entirely, as aside from the wealth storage network effect and the wall of institutional money that comes with it, the aforementioned technology and advancements could cause global bitcoinization to dramatically accelerate. To that end, Richard, please tell us how close Bitcoin is to that next stair step higher, propelling its market cap to $1 trillion and yielding recognition of its future role as a cornerstone of the global monetary system.
I think that increasing the regulatory certainty and the onboarding points, for instance, getting more of the 1%. So if the 1% owns 60 or 70% of everything on the planet, well, then the 1% matters more than almost anything else. And if the 1% is used to making all their money and storing all their money in the legacy systems, then having them be able to onboard through ETFs, futures, and all types of different funds is super important. And we saw the first successful implementations of those on-ramps with the CBOE and the CME. And though it was a buy the rumor, sell the news, once the news is done being sold, which could be now, price goes up. And we start to reap the mid and long-term benefits of all these new people getting exposure to the space. So, look at every company that lists blockchain on their marketing documents. They go up in value fourfold, right? Because people want in, and they've got limited ways to do it. So I would also, thus, the futures and ETFs and more interfaces with the legacy financial markets is going to pump liquidity into Bitcoin, and just Bitcoin for the most part, because that's what the majority of the offerings are, right? They're just Bitcoin. And even the funds are going to put the majority of their funds in Bitcoin. So there's some magic system by which first mover advantage and largest liquidity pool makes things winner take all. Now, we haven't seen that in cryptocurrency yet. We haven't seen a winner take all event. And I'm not exactly sure what the precipitating event would be that would cause that, but I'm on the lookout for it. Because if it is the case that the winning currency gains hegemony and outcompetes all the other currencies, well, at the micro level, there's events that make that happen, right? So the US dollar became the world's primary currency after the Bretton Woods Agreement, after World War II, because the United States had the best economy and had received much of Europe's gold for safety reasons, because the conflict was in Europe for the most part. So that event then secured the United States global dominance for global reserve currency under the dollar, which at the time was backed by gold at a specific ratio. And then Nixon took it off of that in the 70s and basically screwed over everybody. They're just like, we owe you a lot of gold for the dollars you hold, but we're just going to break that relationship and you keep those dollars and you're not getting the gold. That's what happened, right? So the same type of thing where Bretton Woods made the US dollar the global reserve currency, that same type of thing could and is likely to happen in cryptocurrency as well. Whatever the precipitating event is, or whether it's the culmination of a bunch of small events, the largest liquidity, most adopted coin should eventually outcompete and outperform all of the other ones. I just wish I had more detail as to exactly when and why and how that would occur, right? But it is the case for currencies.
But you do put 50K Bitcoin, at least you did recently,
Yep.
in your Twitter handle. So you're thinking something's going to happen this year.
Well, I've been pretty good on the price predictions. So,
That you have.
I was 5K and then 20K, and my targets got hit. And I was very happy about that. And I had 50K on there for a while, and that got delayed because the sell the news on the CME. Like, all right, I guess we have to wait a little while. So, and the other issue is, it's, for me, I would love to keep, putting my price predictions in my user handle on Twitter, but it's not exactly professional, right? So if I want to do an interview with Sam Harris goes to my Twitter account and he's like, 50K BTC Richard Hart, shill, right? Because if you have a strong brand and identity, it needs to be separate from a particular financial instrument, which is BTC, right? So like, imagine if Sam Harris or someone else that had like a good Twitter following changed his Twitter handle to 50K BTC Sam Harris. You'd be like, what's going on, man? No more religious stuff, no more political stuff. You're just shilling Bitcoin now. So for me, it's the combination of being in a short bear drop of 45% from 20K, plus launching the CFD token ICO, plus actually not crap talking every alt in the universe anymore. Those things all kind of made me like take the 50K off. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to be Richard Hart for a while.
Yeah. Well, nothing's easy in life. And, it's funny. I keep tweeting it seems like every few weeks I'm sending the same tweet out that says 13,500 is something to be happy about, but we can't be because it was higher, but we
Right.
just were at 13,500 for the first time a few weeks ago. And it's, what you're talking about is there's a gradual growth that's built into the cake. And of course, there's, as you say, precipitating events, i.e., black swans. Some of them are planned, the known unknowns, as Rumsfeld would say, and some are completely unknown. And of course, there's the big pink elephant of the fact that fiat currency is in the later stages of a major Ponzi scheme. That's why we have all the inflation, the negative interest rates, and so we will see what happens. I'm not making any predictions, but I certainly believe that it's going to be a lot higher at the end of the year than it was at the end of this year, which was about 13,500. And finally, Richard, if I had to ask you what your top 3 or 4 cryptocurrency memes for 2018 will be they political, social, or financial, what would they be?
Cryptocurrency memes.
Yes,
Did you
what are
say
the
memes?
or memes or themes? What are going to be the
Okay.
big themes of the year?
Uh, well, if you were asking just memes, I'd say the roller coaster guy is always a good one.
Yes.
The Bitcoin on the roller coaster. That guy's a he's always going to be giving. And then the machine gun coin guy shooting his way up through the chart. That guy's a good meme. Uh, I think you're going to see more privacy coins. I think you're going to see, I should say more privacy coins, but people may care more about their privacy as this gets wider adoption. Uh, I think
Well,
hardware wallets are,
as bigger money gets into it, they're going to be more interested in privacy because they have more to protect.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, so I think you're going to see a lot more of this fast and free tier two stuff rolled out on Bitcoin, like Lightning. Um, you know, is a real user. Do you want fast and free, or do you want expensive and slow? I'll take the fast and free, right? So I think you're going to see a ton of more Lightning adoption. Uh, I think there'll be so many ICOs launched that people stop seeing the returns that they're seeing now because that space will dilute a bit. And probably some people will just run with the money, and maybe some more legislation will come out in that space. So I think the ICO game will get harder over 2018. Um,
Hey, on that note, we're talking about Ethereum and why it's pumping so much.
uh-huh.
Is that part of it? If you're saying there's going to be, some people think the ICO game is a bit dead because of what happened last year because of the Chinese ban, but you seem to be saying that it is reversing and going back up, which could explain in many ways what has happened with Ethereum. Um, is
I
that
think
kind of
I
part of it?
think Ethereum's pumped because it's near the top of the leaderboard more so than anyone cares about these ICOs. Um, if you, I mean, if you take your Ethereum that you bought for dollars and you give it to an ICO and you get an IOU token, you don't have your Ethereum anymore, right? So it's it's funny to me that so many people will take their hard-earned crypto and give it to anybody with a PDF and then hope it all works out. And it's even funnier that it so often has worked out for those guys and they've outperformed. So the
That's
idiots that
correct.
have bought the terrible project and bought the top, it's not the top, it keeps going. You're like, all right. So idiots get rich. All right. That's new and interesting.
Well, that just shows you how early we are in this bull market because the rising tide is lifting all boats. Even if, as you say, the Bitcoin roller coaster guy is making it seem at times like it's not, it absolutely is. You pick any of those altcoins that have been destroyed from Ripple on down, and they're still dramatically higher than where they started.
Yep, it's true. Yeah, I mean, look, this is the result of having hundreds of thousands of people trying to sign up to exchanges and only having 1,000 coins to buy. Some portion of every coin is going to get some of that money, no matter what. I mean, I mentioned my CFD token.com like ICO project, and an unrelated, actual scam, actual failed project that has the CFD ticker on a couple small exchanges, pumped. It did like 500 grand of volume over one day and the next day, and I don't even know where it's at now. Literally failed project that just happened to have CFD as the ticker.
Yeah,
God
well, that
damn!
happened.
Like, are you
That
kidding
happened
me?
in that happened in the dot-com era, and it's happening now. Companies are just putting out press releases saying, "Well, we have blockchain, something with blockchain,"
Right. Yeah.
and you go up, and that'll only last so long because you bring this up before. Yes, there are only a handful of stock market vehicles. You have the GBTC, which is wildly overvalued. You may have ETFs. I think we will have them, but until then, people have to try to play it that way, except most people are going to realize the only real way to play this is in the actual crypto markets. And so I think that's going to be a big source of that wall of institutional money that comes in.
Yeah, I agree. I think over time, enough bad projects will end up being bad that hopefully the good projects get rewarded more than they are currently. In an ideal world, passive investing would matter less, and losers would get rewarded less, and winners would get rewarded more. But right now, if the only thing that gets you rewarded is being up near the top of the chart, then anybody that has a Ponzi pump and dumperoni that works their way up there with wash trading or straight up Ponzi
Pre-mining.
scamming
Yeah.
gets rewarded.
Right.
You
Well, of
you were
course
mentioning something
yeah.
about Bitcoin rhodium, or
Yes.
you going to mention
Yeah,
anything
well,
about it?
that one's interesting. Again, I'm very much into the whole crypto dividend phase, and our fellow World Crypto Network colleague Adam Meister is the king. He actually created the word, so I really follow all these things. And there's, we talked about Be Private before, which whether you like it or not, it's a brand new type of technology, or not technology, type of financial engineering, which people will mimic if it works. Just like Bcash was the first of what it did. In this case, B Rhodium is an airdrop that will be launching next week, in which they gave to the first come first serve Bitcoin holders. They just gave them it, and there's no it'll just be listed, so there won't be any splitting required. So I think if this one is successful, and again, it's called Bitcoin Rhodium, but it's not a fork. There's going to be many others that do the same thing. So these forks are going to be a lot easier to claim because you won't have to wait for Trezor or an exchange to split them for you. And it's just really exciting. But again, when it comes down to it, is only a handful are actually going to be able to be, as you say, sustainable as far as their technology. The rest are just going to either be subsumed by Bitcoin or forgotten. I happen to think very highly of Bitcoin Rhodium because it only has a tenth of the supply of Bitcoin, and but I'm getting it for free, so it's no risk. So, do you have any other main themes that you expect for the coming year before we wrap up?
Mm, we didn't really talk about gold, like gold losing value to Bitcoin.
Me, not talk about gold? Well, sure, let's do it.
Yeah, I think that some large percentage of gold's speculative value, which is probably 80% of its value, will bleed into crypto. So right now, because the markets are so overheated and there's concerns about inflation, you should see increases in uh, counter-inflationary assets such as gold. And then because crypto is showing gains that are so much larger and it has so much more utility, you could see huge portions of gold's multi-trillion dollar valuation just go straight into Bitcoin, I
Right.
think.
Well, none more so than mine. And again, I was for 15 years. I'm not just saying this. I might have been one of the top 10 or 15, uh, you know, precious metal gurus on the planet. I worked at one of the top bullion dealers for a long time. This is all I talked about, and it's all I owned. And I followed the arguments here. And myself, I sold all my silver this summer, and I sold just about all my gold. I still hold some of it because, as I call it now, it's an inflation-adjusted savings account with essentially no downside because the mining industry is dead, and of course all the money printing, and a crisis on a call option on crisis. If we do have a major crisis, yeah, gold will go up, but Bitcoin will be the bigger winner. And as you say, I completely agree that gold's primary use case has been usurped by Bitcoin. It will never be reversed. And as the millennials get older and take the world's wealth, they are not going to care less about precious metals. A little bit more in gold because it's far more valuable and has far more of a genetic understanding of its value. But I think silver is pretty much done as a monetary asset. And as far as gold, I have two price targets for Bitcoin. They're not any specific time. The shorter one, of course, is I think it's going to exceed Apple's market cap, which is now 850, 900 billion, just because I think it has a better use case for the world or more impact. And the bigger one is I think it's going to be worth more than gold. And gold now is 7 or 8 trillion. So maybe it meets lower than that, or maybe it meets higher than that. But I believe that if we come back 10 years, 20 years from now, that Bitcoin will be worth more than gold. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I would have a lower price target because gold has value separate from its speculative value. It does have industrial and jewelry
Oh, very
value.
limited, very, very limited industrial value as
Yeah,
opposed to silver.
yeah. I mean, I think 10% is what it is, and then I give it 20 because I don't feel like being yelled at by the gold bugs. So I just round up a little bit. Um, yeah, everyone carries their cell phone on them all the time now, and no one carries a gold testing kit and a gold bar and all of those other things that you would need to do to try and actually use the stuff. So as long as the world's taking selfies and carrying their phone with them at all times, the digital value storage is pretty much unbeatable. There could be nothing better.
Right. And again, that's part of the gradual. You're certainly not going to see a precipitating event on that, but there's no doubt that as millennials take over the world, that precious metals, all the precious metal people say it's been used for 5,000 years. Well, yeah, but we didn't have a digital age. That's why Bitcoin is the biggest financial innovation in history, and probably one of the top two or three technological innovations in general in history. You have to go back to electricity itself, which spawned the internet. Well, anyway, why don't we finish on that? We're just over an hour's time. I mean, amazing, amazing podcast today with Richard Hart, one of the most intelligent, provocative thought leaders in our space. Again, go to @RichardHartWin. He's all his podcasts, blogs, chat rooms, and tweets are all there. And as for me, please check out the 7-day free trial membership at cryptogoldcentral.com. Sign up for a year for the nominal fee of $225, or contact me at ahoffman@cryptogoldcentral.com if you have an interest in a cryptocurrency or precious metal related consultation. Thank you, everybody, and have a great crypto day.
Thanks, man. Have a great day.